Humans mining rocks that can change your dreams and perceptions? What could possibly go wrong? I was actually quite excited to start reading Dreamstone Moon. I seem to be reading a lot of Doctor Who books that I've not been too keen on recently, so I was thrilled to see Paul Leonard's book was the next on the list, as I really enjoyed Genocide, which was his previous installment in the EDA range. Please see the link below to my review of that book if you haven't already. Dreamstone Moon unfortunately didn't live up to Genocide, however it was still a good read and had some intriguing ideas. It's weirdly reflective of the Doctor Light episodes of New Who, where there isn't much of the Doctor and it focuses more on the companions and the side characters, which in this case I feel fell a little bit flat, as I found Sam irritating, and I'm mainly reading the series for the 8th Doctor anyway, but that's just a personal thing. The book was written pretty well overall, with some sections feeling slightly padded, however these are few and far between as the story progressed and flowed nicely. As mentioned earlier, this book was written by Paul Leonard, and I was a fan of his last installment, Genocide, giving it an 8 out of 10. Leonard has some extensive writing history for Doctor Who by this point, and has written some pretty good books in his time. At this point in the EDA books, the BBC knew more of what they were going for and were beginning to properly settle into the range, giving us the Lost Sam story arc as a trial run for interweaving plots between the books. These interweaving plots get more and more advanced through the books, especially when they start to introduce compassion and when the Doctor gets stuck on Earth again. As much as this overarching plot isn't the best in the world, I'm enjoying the theme so far and looking forward to it concluding. Not sure if that's in a good way or not, however I guess I'll find out when I read the next installment. So the story starts about 6 days after the Doctor loses Sam in Longest Day. Sam is rescued from the Cusk ship and is taken to a mining colony on the Dreamstone Moon, and soon enrolls in a group of environmental activists who don't agree with what the miners are doing, because that's basically Sam's character at this point. The Doctor meanwhile tracks the Cusk ship, and it also leads him to the Dreamstone Moon, and ends up being captured on the colony because they're all racist against aliens, despite employing loads of them. After earthquakes start to kill vast numbers of people, and alien spaceships and giant worms start attacking the bases, the Doctor and Sam both realise separately that the Dreamstone Moon is actually an entity in its own right, and the mining colony is essentially eating out its brain. Therefore it's creating earthquakes and these illusions to try and scare off the miners. In the confusion, the Doctor and Sam briefly meet, however they got separated in the crowd. Now, there's a character I haven't spoken about yet called Anton, who's crucial to this story. Anton is a dream artist and sells his dreams, however the Dreamstone Rock has put him out of business as people don't need dream artists anymore. They can simply buy a Dreamstone which will give them good dreams automatically. Anton wants answers and decides to go to an underground market to buy a Nightmare Dreamstone. Unfortunately, he gets into the business where he has to kill an alien because of this. Anton feels awful and carries this guilt over to the Dreamstone Moon, where he continues to search for his answers about this mysterious rock. He ends up connecting with the planet very deeply, to the point where the Dreamstone Moon feels his guilt and believes humans are a threat. At the end of the book, the Doctor discovers this, but also realises that the moon's consciousness is actually very simple, so he psychically contacts the moon and puts it and Anton to sleep. At the end, the Doctor goes to pick up Sam, however due to her having feelings for the Doctor and because she felt guilty about leaving him in a perilous situation earlier in the book, she decides not to go with the Doctor and leaves before he could pick her up. I love dreams. I think it's such a fascinating part of life that people generally don't pay enough attention to. Just think, every night you close your eyes and literally anything can happen. When I read this blurb, I was so on board with what Leonard was writing, so much so that I couldn't wait to get round to reading this one. Upon reading it, however, I found that, in my humble opinion, it didn't actually explore much of the dream side, which I feel is massively wasted opportunity. Think of the stories you could write about the Dreamstone going wrong and infecting colonies, putting people into nightmares, or worse, if you die in your dream, you die in real life. It literally took me 5 minutes to think of something cooler, but, there we go. That being said, one of my favourite reveals is when it turns out the alien ships and the monsters attacking the bases are actually all illusions projected by the Dreamstone moon. A pause. Then the view in front of Cleomides changed to what seemed to be a small perimeter camp. A pressure dome. A battle seemed to be going on. Soldiers fighting, soldiers firing on each other. Falling, dying. A flash of plasma fire. Cleomides realised she was watching the scene from the point of view of one of the soldiers. As she watched, he fired prolonged bursts with plasma cannon at the others. The suit split open. Cleomides saw an arm waving desperately, perhaps trying to stop the man from firing. Perhaps in death, agony. A jump cut, then the camera advanced, examining the bodies. Suddenly, gauntleted hands clawed over the visor, as huge as monsters. Cleomides jumped back. That's when he realised what he'd done, Shakio's voice. Another thing to note is I was actually really impressed with the characters. This is a Paul Leonard book, so naturally there's a lot of strange aliens that we will probably never see again. However, the characters he does focus on are very well fleshed out and do feel real. I really liked Anton, for example, who gave us this chilling scene. He'd raised his hands to his neck. With a shock, Sam realised he was removing his helmet. Anton! She glanced at her suit's monitor and saw that the atmosphere outside was barely breathable. Had he run out of air? Perhaps she could share her supply or something. She ran up to him and saw his wild face, his hair glued to his forehead with sweat. She heard his shout even through his sealed helmet. "It's calling me." Sam felt a jolt of fear. "The Dreamstone? We have to join with it." "What?" "I know it's frightening, but we have to tell it." He was breathing hard as if he were running. Sam realised that she could feel it too. Fear. Raw, terrible fear. Pain. Fever. "Anton, we have to go back." But he was still climbing the slope. "Anton!" Shapes were crowding Sam's vision. Dim, flickering shapes of terror and delirium. Some of them human, some of them alien. Anton screamed a hoarse and terrible sound. The Doctor and Sam were both written well. The only issue I had was how they finished the book with them. I'm in awe that Sam did not decide to go with the Doctor in the end. It just feels like Leonard wrote them to come together at the end of the book and then was told there needed to be another book in the arc, so wrote something in quickly to separate them again. For me, this felt disjointed and simply wrong. I just cannot believe the direction they took with this. The pacing was generally okay in Dreamstone Moon, however I felt it was a little bit drawn out and needed a stronger core plot to cover the page span that it did. This left some sections seeming too long and padding was littered throughout, which took the form of world building. Don't get me wrong, the world building is great if it comes to fruition, but if not, and it's simply used to bulk the page numbers out, it really doesn't work. I feel it was the worst about halfway through onwards as I struggled to really get interested in the plot, however the first half was gripping. Overall, Dreamstone Moon is a pretty good book with interesting ideas, but unfortunately missed the mark on a few areas for me. Its well-developed characters seem to be swallowed by a drawn-out plot. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. Not as good as Leonard's previous works, but it is just above an average read. Okay, so that's the end of today's review. I do hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, obviously give us a subscribe. I've got loads of different videos in the 8th Doctor range, as I'm sure you probably already know. I do other reviews as well. I've started to review the new series adventures, which I'm really enjoying kind of going through them. Some of them are better than others, so we'll just see how that pans out. But yeah, no, I hope you have a fantastic day, and see you in the next video.